the smell of burnt espresso mixed with rain-soaked clothes and quiet embarrassment. She stood at the counter, staring at the total on the screen, $4.75 for a small coffee. Her fingers shook as she opened her worn-out wallet. 2 crumpled dollar bills and a handful of coins. Not enough. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Can you cancel it?" The cashier sighed, already annoyed. The people in line behind her began to shift impatiently. She felt their stares, sharp, judging, heavy. Then a calm voice broke through the noise. "It's all right," the man said softly. "I'll pay for it." She turned around. He looked ordinary, mid-30s, dark hair, kind eyes. But there was something in his expression that disarmed her, understanding, not pity. "You don't have to," she said quietly. "I know," he replied, handing his card to the cashier. "But I want to." Her throat tightened. The words slipped out before she could stop them. "I can't even afford the bus ride home." For a second, silence hung between them. Then, with a small smile, he said, "Then let's fix that too." She blinked, unsure what to say. There was a calmness about him, like he knew exactly what it felt like to stand where she was standing now. As they stepped aside with their coffees, neither of them knew this small act of kindness would change both of their lives forever. They sat near the window, where the soft rain tapped against the glass like a quiet song. The warmth of the cafe felt almost unreal compared to the chill that had followed her all day. The man placed the cup in front of her. "Drink," he said gently. "You look like you haven't had something warm in a while." She hesitated, wrapping her fingers around the cup. The heat burned slightly, but it felt good, like something she hadn't felt in a long time. Comfort. "I didn't ask for charity," she murmured, avoiding his eyes. "I know," he replied softly. "But kindness isn't charity." For a while, neither of them spoke. The clinking of spoons and soft chatter filled the silence between them. Finally, he asked, "Rough day?" She gave a small, tired laugh. "Try rough month. Lost my job, rent's due, my phone's cut off, and the one interview I had got canceled an hour ago. So yeah, I'd say rough." He nodded slowly, like he understood every word. "I've been there," he said quietly. "Rock bottom feels endless, until someone gives you a reason to stand up again." She looked at him curiously. "You've been homeless?" He smiled faintly. "For a while, yes, slept in my car, ate instant noodles, pretended I was okay. One day a stranger bought my coffee and told me I'd make it. I didn't believe them, but somehow I did." She studied him silently, realizing this wasn't pity, it was empathy. "And now you're doing the same," she said softly. "Maybe it's my turn to pass it on," he said with a smile. Then he looked at her seriously. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" Her eyes fell. "Not really." She didn't look up right away. The question lingered in the air, heavy but sincere. She hated that her answer made her feel small. "Not really," she whispered. "I was hoping to find a shelter nearby, but they're full tonight." He nodded slowly, as if he had already guessed. "There's a small motel a few blocks down," he said quietly. "It's not much, but it's clean and safe. Let me help you get a room for the night." Her eyes widened. "No, you've already done enough," she said quickly. "I can't take your money." "You wouldn't be taking," he said calmly. "You'd be accepting help. There's a difference." She wanted to protest again, but something in his voice, that calm certainty, stopped her. It wasn't pity, it wasn't guilt. It was kindness with no strings attached, and that was something she hadn't felt in a long time. They finished their coffee in silence, both lost in their thoughts. When they stepped outside, the rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle. The air smelled fresh, almost hopeful. He walked beside her, keeping just enough distance to be respectful. At the motel, he spoke to the clerk, paid quietly, and handed her a key card. "Room 104, he said softly. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will look different." She stared at the card, words caught in her throat. "I don't even know your name," she said finally. He smiled faintly. "It's Daniel." She nodded slowly. "I'm Claire. Good night, Claire," he said, turning to leave. But as she watched him walk away under the streetlight, something inside her whispered that this wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning. Morning sunlight crept through the thin curtains of the small motel room. For the first time in weeks, Claire had slept without fear. The bed was lumpy, the walls thin, but the simple safety of it felt priceless. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. On the nightstand sat a small brown paper bag with her name written on it in neat handwriting. Inside was a breakfast sandwich, a bottle of water, and a folded note. Her heart skipped. Didn't want to wake you. Hope this helps you start the day a little easier. Daniel. She smiled softly, tracing the handwriting with her thumb. For someone who barely knew her, he had shown more care than people she trusted for years. After checking out, she walked back toward the cafe, hoping to see him again. Maybe to thank him. Maybe to understand why a stranger had been so kind. To her surprise, the cafe staff recognized the name immediately. Daniel? The barista said. He's here almost every morning. Sits by the window, laptop open, always helps people out. Regulars, homeless folks, anyone who needs a hand. Claire smiled faintly. Does he work here? The barista shook his head. No, he owns the place. Bought it a year ago. Said he wanted to turn it into a place where no one feels invisible. Claire froze. He owns it? The barista nodded. Nicest guy you'll ever meet. She stepped outside, the wind brushing her hair as she stared at the cafe sign glistening in the sun. For the first time she realized his kindness hadn't been random. It was his purpose. And she felt something stir inside her, the need to do the same. Days turned into a quiet rhythm. Claire started coming to the cafe each morning, sometimes to buy coffee, sometimes just to sit near the window where she had first met Daniel. She didn't always see him, but she could feel his presence in the place, in the free coffee cards taped to the counter, the gentle notes left for strangers, the pay what you can sign written in chalk by the door. One morning, she finally saw him again, sleeves rolled up, cleaning tables like any other worker. You own this place, and you still do that? She asked, smiling. Daniel looked up, surprised but pleased to see her. It's still my favorite part, he said. It reminds me of how I started. Claire sat down. The barista told me about your past, she said softly. How you lost everything once. He nodded. Yeah, I used to think failure was the end, but it turned out to be the beginning of who I was meant to be. One person's kindness changed everything, and I promised I'd do the same for others. His words hit her deeply. She looked down at her coffee, eyes glistening. You don't even know what that night meant to me, she whispered. You made me feel seen again. Daniel smiled gently. Then do the same for someone else. That's how it grows. For the first time, Claire didn't just feel grateful, she felt capable. That single act of kindness had become her turning point. As she left the cafe that day, a job listing on the notice board caught her eye, now hiring, front counter assistant. She looked back at Daniel. He smiled knowingly. You should apply. And she did. Weeks passed and the cafe began to feel like home. Claire worked behind the counter with quiet joy, greeting customers with the same warmth Daniel had once shown her. Every day she saw reflections of her old self, people struggling, tired, or just invisible. And every day, she found a way to make them feel seen. Daniel noticed the change too. You got the hang of it, he said one evening as they closed up. People trust you. She smiled. Maybe because I understand what it feels like to need a little light. He nodded, a proud glint in his eyes. That's exactly why I hired you. As the weeks turned to months, business grew. The cafe became known not just for its coffee, but for its kindness. A place where no one was turned away, and everyone had a story worth hearing. One rainy afternoon, a young mother walked in with her little boy. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling as she counted a few coins on the counter. Claire recognized that look instantly, desperation mixed with pride. Before the woman could speak, Claire gently pushed the cup toward her. It's on me, she said softly. The woman's lip quivered. I can't even afford the bus ride home. For a moment, time stood still. Then Claire smiled, the same way Daniel had smiled at her months ago, and said, Then let's fix that too. Daniel watched from the corner, his heart full. Kindness had come full circle. Sometimes it doesn't take a miracle to change a life. Just one person who refuses to walk away, and in that little cafe, kindness became the currency that never ran out.